On this month's 1916 Excelsior ride, I interview my vintage motorcycle restoration expert and riding buddy Mike Lynch as the two of us take a ride through the towns of Alamo and Danville. I met Mike about 9 years ago via the Facebook group Motorcycle Memories. Not long after that, photos of this 1916 Excelsior were posted there, and I ended up buying it as a basket case. Long story short, Mike helped me get it back on the road within 53 days, and we have been riding together on this and a selection of his vintage motorcycles on a monthly basis ever since.
This is Mark Harrigan. I'm sitting down with my friend Mike Lynch, and he's going to tell us a little bit about his life doing things with mechanical stuff.
All right, Mike Lynch here. I guess really going back, I'll try and make it short, but when we moved to McKinleyville, I was 5 years old, I believe. I can remember walking by the neighbor's house. He was working on a lawnmower. I remember it was a vertical drive, 7 head bolts. I remember it clearly, and of course he said something like, every one of these bolts and screws has to be tight or this thing won't run. And I was just amazed at the concept that every little screw in that had to be tight or there's going to be a problem. So my connection with mechanical stuff goes back at least that far. Flash forward.
And you were like 10 years old at that time?
No, that was 5 or 6 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. And I just stood there and stared at him working on this thing. I was just amazed by it. Once again, flash forward to 10 years old. My brother Bill was an instigator. We somehow found a way to build out of a broken down go-kart, a running go-kart. It had a spring to pull the throttle back, and to go slower you would pull the string to go slower. So if you lost the string, you're full bore. Anyway, long story short, the thing caught on fire. My brother, the string burnt, so he's driving in circles around me and I'm trying to put it out. We had this deal that we could use our own clothes, whether it be our shirts or our jackets, whatever we were wearing. The go-kart was worth more. So I'm trying to put it out. He's going faster and faster. He has to go around the building, comes back, but eventually we got it put out, and I think my mom made us sell that thing. So first motorcycle was a moped. Once again, I was, my brother and I were partners on it. He's 2.5 years older than me. I think we traded the go-kart for it, and that moped didn't run, and we found a way to get a new piston for $4. Of course, it's a 2-stroke, so there's other issues. It's not just the piston, but there's grooves and stuff like that. Well, I was just so into it that I decided to pretend like I was sick one day. My mom went to work and I got up out of bed and started working on the moped and got it running, and I'm driving it all over the neighborhood. And of course, by the time my mom got back home, I'm back in bed. So that lasted a while. I got involved with gymnastics, which slowed me down a little bit as far as the production. But my first restored bike, I think I did a Yamaha YDS3 twin, 250 twin. That was a lot of fun. I did my 1954 Triumph. This was early part of college. A lot of motorcycles in between then and now. Honda 160s, putting Honda 90 motors in a Honda 50 frame, for a little bit of speed. And then all of a sudden one day, I was working on my Triumph. There was a guy up in Paradise, California, who was going to do some welding for me. I went up there and he had an old frame and a motor sitting back there. And I said, "What is that?" He said, "That's an Indian 101 Scout. One of these days I'm going to get it running." Eventually, me being me, I talked him out of it. I think I paid $150 for the complete motor and just the frame. And so I built up the Indian 101, the red 101 that's on my Facebook page. From there, it became a national show winner.
So it's the same bike you have today?
Yeah. I restored that 48 years ago. And it's still, if I shine it up, I can put it into a show. It drives good. It's a really nice running motorcycle. So I'm trying to give you the short version of it all. And then not long after that, I got involved even deeper in gymnastics, started my own club. As some of you guys know, I was coaching in the Olympics, and I was the head coach on tours. We did many city tours for several years, so that took me away. But then I decided I don't know what happened, just one day I saw another set of Indians all torn apart for sale down in Los Gatos. So I found a friend of mine and we went down there, and he took half the pile, I took the other half. Built a few more 101s out of that. That's a 45-inch, you know, we're talking about 1928, 29, 30, that vintage. Got my first 4-cylinder about 5 years after that. It was a 1936 4-cylinder. All these bikes were piles. They were not complete bikes by any means. This bike that we're sitting right here, part of the motor was found in Oregon. This chassis came from Montana. The front forks, I think, were somewhere in Europe. Wheels, I've been to Davenport during the big swap meets and found parts there. And eventually you have a home motorcycle. So none of these bikes that you see were complete motorcycles when I got them. But that's a lot of the fun, is finding parts, getting to know other people that love it just as much as you, helping them. If we need to build parts, instead of building one, I built 2, 3, 4, 5, and then other guys can have them. That's just sort of how we do it with these old bikes. And I am, as much as I can work on just about any bikes, I'm actually fairly narrowly focused. Right now it's mostly the early American 4-cylinders, Indians and Hendersons. And I know a whole lot about a few bikes, and there's a lot of bikes I don't know much about, although they all sort of subscribe to the same notion of how they work and how to fix them and all that stuff. So so that went on. The 1936 4-cylinder and the 101, the red 101 that we just talked about, went down to a show in LA and both took first in class. And got some other side awards, which was really nice. Jay Leno was there. It's good to meet him. We spent some time at a barbecue, backyard barbecue. He was in about a 1928 Bentley, beautiful car with a supercharger on the front that sticks out, and he comes driving up in that. You know, I'm thinking I'm doing good with these Indians, and I see that Bentley. Jealous. So anyway, that's how that goes. And then once I moved into this house, I decided I was working in my friend's machine shop. So when I needed stuff, we would go there. I'd jump on his milling machine, his lathes. He was a very good machinist. His name's Paul Weiscarver. His father owned Bishop Weiscarver. It was a big machining company in Pittsburgh. I believe it's still there, Bishop Weiscarver. But Paul we'd get on his machines, and I started learning about metallurgy, what types of metal to make things out of. I used to think metal is metal. You just carve out the part and you're done. But there's certain types that are more brittle, certain types that are more tough. There's certain types that are more for polishing, for bearing surfaces, and then the application of heat and torches to turn and bend things to the shape that you want. As an example, these handlebars were made from a torch, and I copied an original set that I had on a 1914 Henderson, which is basically the same set of bars. So understanding the bends here, the curves, these little joints, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen you make templates
Of course,
to make sure the curves are perfect.
Yeah.
And you're pretty much all self-taught. I mean,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Well, what happened is a lot of this stuff, it wasn't that valuable back in the early 80s. It was desirable, people liked it, but it didn't have a high dollar value. And so you could experiment on your own stuff, and if you did screw it up, you're not going to be out too much money. Nowadays, you can't really experiment, you know, because that part is so ridiculously rare, you'll never find another one. So I was really, really lucky to develop those skills years ago. And now when an expensive part, what I mean by expensive, a valuable part that's irreplaceable, when it comes around, I feel like I know what to do with it, where I'm not going to damage it, I'm going to make it better. My goal has always been to make things better. If a motorcycle comes in, a guy wants me to look at it or fool with a carb, I want to make sure that motorcycle is a better specimen when it leaves than it was when it got here, you know, when it came. So sort of a philosophical thing. And that's the other thing about these old bikes. There's philosophies that you come up with for your own self. For me, I'm always trying to get better. That's a philosophy. I always want to improve. I want to get smarter. I want my skills to get better. I want to know more. I want to be more efficient. And that sort of keeps you going, because if it's just about going out there and working on stuff and that's how you spend your day, to me that's sort of boring. But the concept that when I'm doing something, I'm constantly thinking, is this the best way? And if not, what might be? It just makes it more fun.
Yeah, I mean, you know, over the years that I've known you, I've seen you just do things that blow me away. Taking airplane motors that are cutoffs and you know, putting bell housings on them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just.
But sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes you have a failure and you have to go back and assess it and just wonder, because you can do something and spend an hour on something that just cost you 2 weeks. You
Right,
know?
right.
And so you're trying to minimize those. Those mistakes are going to happen, but you want them to be at the very, very minimum. But it's been a fun hobby. And then, of course, I like my stuff to run and to run good. I built a lot of the motors for the Cannonball race. You're familiar with the race. It starts on the East Coast. They do it every 2 years, and then with an interruption for COVID, but then 16-day endurance run. They come all the way out to the West Coast. There's a big celebration at the end. So I built quite a few motors for that, although I haven't done it. I don't have the same interest in 16 days on the road on a 110-year-old motorcycle as a lot of these guys do, but it's fun participating, and I like my stuff to run and to run good. I don't like it just to look good. You know, I want it to be able to run.
Yeah, everything you got is a runner. I mean, and you and I ride probably once a month at least, and I know you go out much more often than that. You know, the ride 'em, don't hide 'em is really, really important to me, and obviously you as well. That's a big deal. I mean,
a lot of it is, you know, this motorcycle right here is 1917, and it was done at a point in time where, don't forget, cars had just been the first, you know, mass-produced car was only, you know, 10 years before that, the Model T. So we're right in the decade when cars and motorcycles just first started happening, and so there was a lot of experimentation. But what you're trying to do is, when you're working on these, or you're building them, or you're deciding on your paintwork, you try and get in the head of the person who was the artist or the innovator of that time, you know, what they were faced with, either materials-wise. They didn't have all of these years of different types of designs behind them to study. They had to come up with this stuff on their own. The advantage we have nowadays is we can look back at what cars from the 30s, 40s, 50s, and we can copy those for the hot rods we build, or whatever kind of innovative work we want to do. But back then they didn't have that. They were just coming up with stuff on their own. So it had to be, they had the idea of aesthetics, and they had the idea of mechanical advancements and advantages. And so when I'm restoring these, I'm trying to get into their heads. What were they thinking back then? Why would they have done it this way? And when it comes to a repair, you think the same thing. If I'm going to repair this, I have A, B, or C choices. You know, what was the original thought? Why was the brake shaft here instead of right here? And it really helps, and it makes it a lot more fun. And in the end, I feel like there's an aesthetic value to it, as well as a mechanical value to it, you know, when you see the motorcycle in its finished state. So anyway, I did two of these. I did two of the earlier version where the footboard is in front of the motor. Those are in a museum now up in Utah called the Legends of the Motorcycle. And so I'm at a point now where I'm going to keep doing it, but it's sort of like, what's next? You know, what can I do that hopefully is on the next level? So, any questions from you, Mark?
well, yeah, I think you've really answered most of them. I mean, you've done so much, you really can't cover it without hours worth of video time here. But, you know, again, the thing that blows me the most away is your machine shop, your skills that you developed over the years, putting together like that 1913 Henderson that was buried behind a barn. I mean, it was nothing but, I still have the frame rail above my fireplace. I mean, to make that thing run, it just blows me away.
You drove it, by the way.
I rode it.
You're
That's
the only other
right.
person besides me that's driven that motorcycle, and I think we have video of you doing it. So, but that stuff is fun for me.
Yeah.
I just love that, bringing something back from the dead. It was, like you said, it was buried. It was a pile of rust, and we were able to regraft on the pieces that were unsalvageable and actually weld up other pieces, build the metal back up with weld and reshape it and re-strengthen it. And that's a really nice running motorcycle.
Yeah.
Right now. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, Mike, thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. And look forward to riding with you again.
And to the audience that might be listening, watch out for motorcycles. Be careful. In some of these cases, like this motorcycle, they don't have a front brake.
Yeah.
And if you see any of us, Mark or I, riding around, please wave hi.
Yes,
honk,
absolutely.
whatever, for sure.
That really makes it fun. Come up and talk to us, ask us questions. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mark.
Many thanks to Mike for his time here to do this interview and his patience and expertise over these past 9 years in keeping this 1916 on the road. When I first bought it, I did not think I would actually be riding it much if at all, but Mike encouraged me to do so, and it's been a blast. Last note here, the 1916 started on the very first crank. Normally it takes several priming cranks before it will fire up, and it ran perfectly. Thanks again, Mike.